Hi, Grade Lit students. Welcome to the 11th week of the fall 2017 semester. We are beginning the 20th century today, which means that we are beginning a new book. So make sure that you have this third volume, volume F, and you're ready to go. So we've got a lot of poets this week. Poetry was huge at the beginning of the 20th century. And so it's only fitting that we start the 20th century with poets. And we're going to start with, I've divided it into two groups. One was the World War I poets. The World War I poets were an interesting lot because you had Rupert Brooke, who actually was very patriotic. He loved England. He was going to die for his country, which he did. So his poetry was a little bit prophetic, if you will. But he was all about rah, rah, go England. Then you're going to read two other poets, and they are called the trench poets. And they are Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon. Those guys did not see the glory of war. They did not think that dying for one's country was a grand thing. They thought that war was horrible, that war caused tragic deaths, and they wrote about that side of the war, the dark underside, rather than the glorious war that Rupert Brooke was trying to promote. So that's your World War I poets. Also go through that World War I slideshow. Look at what caused World War I. It was really, it was such a horrible war at the time that nobody ever thought there would be such a thing as World War II. Of course, nobody anticipated Hitler and the rise of the Japanese Empire, but those are things for your history teacher to teach you. But definitely look at the World War I poetry and answer that question. And I think you're going to find that it is very enlightening about the attitudes that people have to war, both at the beginning of the war, when everybody was like how glorious it is to die for one's country, and as the war dragged on, when people are like, man, this is a horrible way to die. All right, then we got the other poets. I had to include William Butler Yeats. William Butler Yeats is iconic in the world of poetry, and so you will be reading two of his poems. I could have chosen any number of his poems, but I chose Lake Isle of Innisfree to show his Celtic or his Gaelic influences on his poetry, and then I chose Easter 1916 because he was interesting in that he was an Irish poet who was living in England when the Irish decided during World War I that they wanted to try to break free from England and start their own country. And you should read some background on the Easter 1916 uprising. I do have that in the slideshow on William Butler Yeats. You'll want to take a look at that. But you definitely will see a man who is torn between his love for Ireland and his love for England at a time when the two countries were fighting each other. Then we've got modernism. And that includes T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is another icon in British poetry. So I've given you two icons in William Butler Yeats and in T.S. Eliot in the same week. Modernism was an interesting movement. It was very experimental. It was all about the high art, art that was not accessible to everybody, but rather only to the social elite and to the educated elite. And so you're going to see that J. Alfred Prufrock is not exactly an easy poem to read, but it's worth the effort if you take the time to go into it. And then Dylan Thomas. He doesn't really fit in anywhere in any of these movements, so I put him in this week too, as you have to read his great poem, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. That is a poem that he wrote for his dying father. He was, of course, night means death and light means life. And as his father's light was dimming and he was about to go into that good night, Dylan Thomas is begging his dad, no, Dad, don't go so soon. Fight this. Fight for life. Fight for the light. Again, a very, very iconic poem. Dylan Thomas, of course, was also a very popular poet in his time, not only because he was a good poet, but he was very handsome, and he was kind of like today's modern celebrities, where people want to go, which bar did they go to, or which woman is he dating, or basically tabloid fodder. Dylan Thomas was very much tabloid fodder, but he also was a very talented poet, and Do Not Go Gentle on That Good Night is a good example of that. So make sure you get everything done. I have gotten pretty much caught up with all the grading of the postings, and I've gotten pretty much caught up with all the grading of the quizzes, but again, there may be one or two that I've missed, but that's because they were turned in after I finished grading them. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this week's readings. There are a lot of them, but the quiz this week, the reading quiz, is all multiple choice. That way you can turn right to the poem, read the poem. Won't take you very long in most cases. I mean, none of these poems are more than a couple pages, and they are very short. So take the time to read these poems, to enjoy them, and also to be reading them as you take the quiz. And I think that it will help you understand them better, as will the slideshows. So that's all I got. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I hope to talk to you soon.